When school stories were in their heyday in the late Victorian age and early 20th century, conventional wisdom had it that children enjoyed school stories because these stories reflected the world they lived in. Just as children and adolescents at school had to deal with bullies, schoolwork, getting on the wrong side of teachers and administrators, and so on, so did characters in school stories. In an age when the upper class commonly sent its scions to boarding school, school stories could also offer a way for boys and girls to learn the proper way to handle loneliness, never mention it, how to be a gentleman, and how to have a good time. Because most readers of school stories did not actually attend the kind of school portrayed in these books and magazines, these stories also had an aspirational quality. They showed children whose family status or income barred them from boarding school and the ranks of society's rulers what kinds of manners and attributes those rulers were being taught, which could provide an advantage to a boy who hoped one day to fit into at least the anteroom of the ruling class. Implicit in all this is the idea that school stories are realistic, that they accurately portray the world they represent. If this is true, then school stories fit into a literary mode called realism, which offers a view of reality that it expects readers to accept as natural. When we read a piece of writing in the realist mode, it can be very difficult for us to remember that what we're being presented with is constructed. These texts want us to look at them and say, nothing is being translated or represented here. I am seeing the world as it is. To do this, they signal to us in various ways that we should trust their representation as accurate. The school story compounds this sleight of hand by making another analogy, that the world of the school is like the world outside it. The little world of the school that we talked about at the beginning of the class is really an argument about how the world works, but it's one we're not meant to see. Let's think for a minute about Tom Brown again. The narrator tells us at the beginning of the chapter titled The Fight that fighting is inevitable. After all, what would life be without fighting, he wants to know. From the cradle to the grave, fighting, rightly understood, is the business, the highest, honestest business of every son of man. Everyone who is worth his salt has enemies who must be beaten, be they evil thoughts and habits in himself, or spiritual wickednesses in high places, or Russians, or border ruffians, or Bill, Tom, or Harry, who will not let him live his life in quiet until he has thrashed them. What are the ideological messages of this passage? What version of the world does it want us to see? We might also think about something like sexual behavior at single-sex boarding schools. Because the students are adolescents, they are, of course, feeling the usual things that adolescents feel. But because they are blocked from interacting with the opposite sex, all of those feelings must be directed toward others of the same gender. This happens, though, not in a society that is tolerant of homosexuality, but in a society that condemns and penalizes it. Compounding all this is the strongly desired homosociality of the school. The real purpose of school, one might say, is to get boys, especially, to form strong bonds with other same-age boys. Thomas Hughes talks about the little friend system at rugby. This system is one in which big boys choose little boys to be their special friends. They take them under their wing and help them get through the school. Unspoken, of course, is that these relationships were often romantic and or sexual. Hughes certainly can't imagine that anything untoward is happening in these relationships. Or you can think about Stalky, where the boys explicitly say that beastliness happens at other people's schools, but not at the Call. The denial of sexual attraction and activity is a way to assert that the world of the school, and thus the world outside school, is a world in which boys are utterly asexual until they meet the woman of their dreams and marry. That's not really the way the world works, of course, in our day or in the Victorian era. But covered up in this is the possibility of homosexuality, and so we can see that a system that is all about boys caring deeply for one another is also one that vigorously upholds the widespread homophobia of the culture. Now, we might not want to say that Harry Potter's world is a realistic one. After all, there are witches and wizards, students get to school on a magical train, they board through a magical portal, and the favorite sport involves flying through the air, chasing a tiny flying ball. But Harry Potter arrives in the magical world via an utterly mundane middle-class subdivision with the most studiedly middle-class family in the world. He is just as surprised by the magical elements of the story as we are. He becomes accustomed to candy that jumps away from the inattentive, staircases that move, and portraits that talk back, and as he becomes accustomed, we do too, and we see the world of Hogwarts as just a version of the ordinary world of school stories. So what do you think are the ideological messages of Harry Potter? What things does it want us to see? What does it want us to accept without questioning? What do you think it says about the world we live in, and how does it do that? You'll have an opportunity to think about these questions in the forum this week, the last forum for the semester.